This is CHSR 97.9 FM here in Fredericton, New Brunswick, Canada, and you're listening to Python's Paradise, your film and music show. This is your host, Greg Gilbert, aka the Python Hyena, and unfortunately, Shiloh 6 unable to join me today because of some scheduling issues, but I have a great show for you today. I got a wonderful guest on the show. In fact, we can all say that she is an angel. She's got the last name to prove it, and she's got the face to prove it, too, because she is gorgeous. I'd like to give you Vanessa Angel, the beautiful Vanessa Angel. Hello, Vanessa.
Hi, Greg. How are you?
I'm doing fine.
Good.
How is the LA weather?
It's actually really warm. It's yesterday and the day before were in the 80s, so sorry to make you jealous there. But it's supposed to be, we're having a little cooling trend in the next few days, so it'll be down into the low 60s, which is probably a balmy day for you guys.
Yeah, we got hit with a snowstorm last week. So.
But I like that. Like at holiday time, I like to have a little chilliness in the air. It's actually kind of, sometimes the endless sunshine here in LA can be a bit boring.
Yeah. Well, I'm honored to have you on the phone with me,
Well, thank you.
Like I was watching Hall Pass the other night, and it's gotten to the point, you're my 20th interview this year from Cult Films.
Really?
Yeah, and if somebody was to say to me last year, you're going to be interviewing people from Cult Films for your show, because I review movies, and I just talk about movies on here and play music, and if somebody was to say to me last year, I'd be interviewing Cult Film stars, I'd be like, you got to be, what are you on, But
well, it's funny to be like thought of as a cult film person, actually, because it's funny that actually that Kingpin became this sort of success after the fact, because when it first came out, it didn't really get that much attention, and then after There's Something About Mary came out, people kind of went back to the Farrelly's earlier movies to see what they were about, and that's almost when Kingpin got discovered, I think.
Well, I'm going to tell you, it all started back in April, and my co-host, who is not with us right now, he got us through Riff Tracks, an interview with Tommy Wiseau with The Room, and after we interviewed him, I was just like, who else can we talk to, And I've been doing pretty well with this and still keep in contact with some of the people I interview, too, so
That's great. Well, that's the beauty, I think, of social media, is that there's easier access to people. It used to be that you'd always have to go through a publicist, and now I think the artist has sort of more access and say as to who they want to talk to.
Well, Kingpin came out in 1996, which was the year I started film criticism.
Okay.
Yeah, and it landed on my top 10 best of the year. In fact, it was definitely my favorite film of the year. But that was a year that a lot of people went to a lot of junk. I mean, I'm sorry, but I did not like Independence Day. I don't think the United States president is going to get into a plane and fight the aliens.
Yeah, no, I know people like that kind of stuff. It's not my cup of tea either, but yeah, God, was that the same year? Was that 1996?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
I
can't believe that's 20 years ago. That's crazy.
I was talking to a German professor, and he said if Independence Day was shot in Canada and the Prime Minister of Canada flew against the aliens, the states would laugh at us. But yet we're supposed to believe the United States president flies against the aliens, and right. I was more apt to buy the drunk doing it. And then, of course, even worse was Twister. Like, I'd prefer to watch an hour and a half of stuff flushing down the toilet than that Whirlwind. I mean, that movie was boring.
Yeah, I get you. Well, and plus, special effects have gotten so much better in the last 20 years, too.
So, Kingpin comes out, and it didn't even come here to my hometown.
Really?
I think it played at the university, though, which I think has better taste. But I remember when Dumb and Dumber came out, I loved it, and I remember seeing that on its premiere night with my younger brother, and loved that. And in Kingpin didn't play here, but man, when I watched it for the first time, I fell in love with it, and boy, it was a movie I related to so well, you know?
Really?
Yes.
Well, I think the beauty of Kingpin is that you can watch it sort of over and over, and you find different things each time, and it doesn't get like old. You know, it's one of those movies that you can see a few times and still enjoy it.
Yes. And one scene at one point, I don't know whether Wikipedia gets stuff wrong, so correct me if I'm wrong. You got married in 1996, right?
I did. I got married in April of '96, so it was it was a couple of months before the movie came out. Actually, yeah, I had met my husband a year before that, and it was a few months before I went off to do Kingpin. So it was an odd time because I was in a new relationship and also doing this sort of big movie, which was sort of big break for me at the time.
Oh, I think he's a lucky man to have you.
Yeah, we're still married, almost 20 years later. So
That is awesome.
Yeah.
I bet you when he watches Kingpin, I bet he knows he picked the right one.
Yeah, it was a stressful time actually because I was also shooting this TV show called Weird Science, and I was on my hiatus, and we shot part of Kingpin in Reno, and I was also shooting my TV show at the same time. So it was quite difficult. It was a little bit overwhelming. Because on Weird Science, I was, also the lead in that show. So I was sort of going to Reno and then coming back to L.A. and going up to Reno, and it was a stressful few weeks.
Well, I thought Kingpin, like I said, one of the best films of the year. And one scene I want to point out in particular, and this scene still cracks me up to this day, and I think you might know what scene I'm talking about, where you beat the living, loving hell out of Woody Harrelson.
I know. It's funny because in the script, when I first read it, some of the sort of the gross out humor and the thing with the boobs, with the mechanical boobs, that wasn't written in the script, and the Farrelly brothers would sort of add that stuff as we were going. So it was, there was kind of like surprises a lot where you thought you were doing one thing, and then I think we'll do these mechanical boobs that will like move from side to side. And so, you had to sort of have an open mind and be a good sport about it. Because, when someone says that, you're going to have these mechanical boobs put under your sweater, it sounds really weird. But, yeah, I love that scene. It's really, really funny. And we shot it in Pittsburgh in, I think, November, and it was freezing cold. And it was in the middle of the night. And I had a stunt double for some of the more extreme parts of it. But there's nothing like a girl getting rough, getting rough and holding her own with a guy.
Yeah, especially since that guy 2 years prior was, quote unquote, the natural born killer. He don't look like such a killer anymore.
Right, exactly.
I loved how juvenile he was too. He starts boxing your boobs, and he's got the upper hand, and it gets to the point where, like, you headbutt him. Like, I don't see women headbutt, but you headbutt him, and he thinks he tries one last time to bite your leg or something.
I know it is really a funny fight scene. Claudia was a tough cookie.
Yeah, that was pretty funny, and that was. That's got to be probably your best role to date. Would you say that?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it probably. I mean, I've actually done some. I just did a movie this year where I'm really happy and excited. Actually, I did 2 movies this year, but they're just less movies that are less exposed. So I think in terms of, just people think of me as the girl in Kingpin, but I actually have done some other roles that have a lot of, depth and range of emotion that I, wasn't necessarily able to show in Kingpin.
Yes. How did you get the role for Kingpin?
Well, it was a long process, actually. I was on, as I said before, I was on that show Weird Science, and I think Peter Farrelly had spotted me on that show. And so my agent sent me the script, and I read it, and I'd loved Dumb and Dumber, so I was excited to meet them. And so I went in several times, and I I ended up having a reading with Woody Harrelson, like after about the fourth time in, and I was kind of the dark horse. I think that there was a couple of other actresses that they had in mind, and but then the more I sort of went in, I think the more they saw me as their Claudia, and so that I had this one final kind of screen test with Woody, and then Woody had to approve me, and I got offered the part. And as I said, I was also shooting the TV show, so fortunately there was a pretty big window of time when they were shooting in Pittsburgh where I was on hiatus from the show, so I was able to time-wise do it. Because when you're on a TV show, you really only have 3 months of the year available, so you sort of hope that you can find another project that works in that time.
So Woody had to approve of you. Let me guess, you took him out and you beat the crap out of him, right?
That's right. Yeah. No, he's actually he's kind of hard to get to know. Like it's a slow process with Woody. So I feel actually very fortunate that he approved me. Because when we did the screen test, he ended up not wanting to sort of read with me. He just wanted to sort of watch. So, because a lot of times you just want to see the chemistry between two actors when they're working together, but he actually wanted to just sort of watch me as a more like an audience member as opposed to being in the scene with me. So I wasn't sure how, after that last audition, I wasn't sure how that would go down, but luckily he thought I was right and liked me, and it went from there.
Yeah, and of course he had that bald head and that hook and rubber hand.
Right, I know. Well, I think the bald head, they decided, like as we were sort of rehearsing, I think he felt that would be a good idea to have that sort of comb over thing. So a lot of those choices were sort of on the fly, I think. They weren't necessarily sort of super pre-planned.
Yeah, and he practically gets raped by Lin Shaye.
Yeah.
I related well to Roy Munson because I know what it's like to come across problem after problem after problem and not being willing to admit that you kind of caused it yourself. And there's a situation like where he's in a tussle with a couple of the gangsters there that were looking for you, and he says to me, he says, you know what, it's probably your own darn fault. And there was something very real about that moment, and it told me exactly what the movie was all about.
Right. Well, I think that was the beauty of the movie, is that even though it had this broad comedy and some silly sight gags and silly things, at the heart of it, it was really the story about these kind of people that were trying to find their way and were survivors ultimately, but making mistake after mistake, and it made them very human and very relatable. And I think that's the difference between Kingpin and some of these other broad comedies, is that you don't really have that. You can't. It was sort of almost sad at times, and I think that, like you said, people have difficult journeys in their life, and they can relate to those type of situations sometimes.
Yeah, there was a moment in the film where like you were gone and Randy was gone, and
right.
I love that scene where like he's sitting by himself in the bowling alley and he just screams, and the only thing, like the janitor just hands him his rubber hand. It's like it's the only thing he has.
Sad. I know. I'm glad that you related to that. I'm not in terms of like this, feeling sad, but in your own life at times, but it's definitely very poignant. I think that everybody sometimes has those moments where you just have to sort of surrender and you just feel down and lost and sad.
Yes. Have you ever been Munsoned out in the middle of nowhere?
It's so funny. People still come up to me sometimes and say that. It's just one of those catchphrases that. I've actually had a rough couple of days this week, so we all have our moments, right? So, sometimes just being alive is challenging.
Yes, I hear you there. And Randy Quaid, I thought, was wonderful in the movie, very funny. I don't know what's going on with him now.
I know, it's really, really strange. I loved working with him. He's such a lovely, kind, sweet man, and I don't know what's happened. I mean, it's just very, very puzzling. I hope he's okay, but it just definitely seems like he's had a rough few years.
Yeah, those videos are kind of scary. The ones
Very scary. I mean, he's always a little bit eccentric, but I didn't see any signs of him sort of going off the rails at all. But I send my best out to him because he's really is a wonderful man. I'm not sure what's going on.
Yes, and you worked also with Bill Murray in the film with that afro haircut.
Yeah, I know. Bill Murray came onto the movie as we were already shooting. Actually, I think that Peter Farrelly had asked Jim Carrey to play that role, and then I think that wasn't working out in terms of timing. And I actually knew Bill Murray because the first movie I ever did was a movie called Spies Like Us with Dan Aykroyd and Chevy Chase.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that momentarily, yeah.
Yeah, and Dan Aykroyd introduced me to, I was living in New York, and Dan Aykroyd introduced me to Bill Murray, and we became a little bit friendly, and so when Peter and I were actually at a Penguins, I think is it the Pittsburgh Penguins?
That's right. Yep.
Yeah, we were at a Penguins game, and we were sort of going over. This is when I think they realized that Jim Carrey couldn't play that role. We were going over a list of people that would be good, and I think Bill Murray's name came up, and I said, "Well, I actually know him, and he's very difficult to get a hold of. Like he has this sort of." He's infamous for like not being easy to reach, and I actually had his like number, and because like he's the kind of person that you can go through his agent, and he just takes like his time to like decide on things, and they didn't have the time for that because it was sort of they needed that character to start filming in a few days, and so I had reached out to Bill Murray myself as well as Peter going through the sort of traditional channels. And I actually talked to him, so I feel like I'm a little tiny reason for Bill taking that role.
Oh, we love you for it.
Yeah.
Like he did all that bowling there at the end. Like he actually did that, I guess.
Yeah. Well, they actually. I mean, the McCracken role was not as extensive as that when it was in the script. But once they got Bill and once they saw how brilliant he was in it, they kind of expanded the ending a little bit, and even the beginning a little bit, and the sort of middle part of the movie, the on the road part of the movie, got kind of condensed a little bit. So yeah, because Bill was just bringing such magic to the part that I think that they just wanted to sort of make the ending like the way that it is.
And it's interesting because Bill Murray can play an antagonist, and you still kind of like him.
Yeah, exactly. Like, what was the movie that he was just in? He was so brilliant in that. I mean, he's such a grumpy character. St. Vincent, have you seen that?
Yes, I have.
Oh
that
my
was
God,
really
so
good.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
And you just can't help but love him. He's just so endearing, even when he's just cranky and mean. He just has that thing about him that's just so relatable.
You see him in Lost in Translation?
Oh, brilliant.
Wow.
Brilliant.
Who'd have thought?
Yeah, he's such a talented actor and such a nice man, too.
Well, you're the third person I've interviewed that. I've never interviewed Bill. I'll probably never get him on here, but you're the third person I've interviewed that has worked with him that have said the same thing. Bill, it's hard to get hold of him, and when he shows up, he tosses the script out.
Yeah, no, he does. He's very much. I mean, but he always makes things better, which is great. I mean, he even I remember helped me with things in Kingpin. Like he would sort of give me little suggestions, and he's just a very collaborative person. But I mean, I think it probably from the director's standpoint, you have to sort of be open to him, interpreting things the way that he's going to interpret them. And you have to, you can't be sort of stuck in, okay, it's going to be like this, and it's my way or no way. And I think people who work with Bill understand that. But he ends up, ultimately making things, transcending them and making them better than they were on the page. So I think people sort of trusted that he's going to bring that to it.
Yeah, we all love Bill. And one other person that you worked with in the film, and he seems to be in every Farrelly Brothers film, is Rob Moran, and I always look for him.
Yes, I know. He has he's good friends with the Farrelly brothers, and I mean that's the nice thing about the Farrelly brothers. They're very loyal, and they actually, if you've noticed, they have their sister, they have like their family members. His parents are usually in the movie for little cameos. Like they have a lot of their close friends and family in every movie. And Rob Moran, I mean, he's a professional actor, but he is a good friend of theirs, and so he often is in their films as well. And they just sort of have this like, sort of traveling band of people that they're close to in the movies, which is lovely. I mean, that's the beauty of the Farrellys. You really feel like a part of their family. I mean, I was at the Dumb and Dumber 2 premiere last year, and I hadn't seen them in a while, but they always just make you feel just so welcomed, and they're just lovely, really genuinely lovely people, and their family are just sweet and kind and just great.
What did you think of Dumb and Dumber 2?
I liked it. I mean, I laughed a lot. I liked it. It was sort of interesting to see them 20 years down the road. I mean, I think Jeff Daniels and Jim Carrey are just so brilliant in those roles.
My one issue, I found they repeated an awful lot of the same jokes.
Yeah, I guess, but I don't know. I'm so biased because I'm just such a big Farrelly Brothers fan at this point. But I mean, I also saw it at the premiere, which is a sort of different energy than if I haven't seen it since then again. So if I watch it again, I might have a little bit more of a critical, mind. But at the, when you're watching it in the premiere, you kind of go along with the energy in the room, and it seemed really funny at the time.
Yeah, well, Jim Carrey and Jeff Daniels were on their game, so I'll give it that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, I loved Kingpin. I think it was one of the best films of 1996, and I definitely think it's a film that people should check out, and it's one I definitely relate to very, very well. So I definitely relate to Roy Munson so well, and it's kind of funny watching somebody who wakes up and accidentally puts his hook in his alarm clock and ends up scratching his head with it.
Yeah, he is a very relatable character. He's I mean, and Woody just brought such humanity to it too. I think he just was very vulnerable and kind of, he definitely makes mistakes, but you kind of forgive him for it, and you kind of feel for him, I think, throughout the whole movie.
Did you get to work any with Lynn Shay in the movie, or was she just in scenes that you weren't involved with?
Well, I got to meet her, but I'm trying to remember if I don't think I had any scenes with her, but she was definitely, we were all in Pittsburgh at the same time, and she's such a sweet, lovely lady too, and, I remember being in the makeup trailer with her, and she was getting her legs made vein.
Yeah.
She was made to look ugly.
The sound of silence.
Attractive lady, but she was being uglied up in the makeup trailer.
I think when she does Insidious, she should play that role when she goes into the mind, and I bet that demon would never bother.
Yeah, right. Yeah, no, she was very courageous, very, very brave to play that role where you really sort of. You're not playing the nicest, most attractive person, because she, like I said, she's actually quite an attractive lady, and so she was, they were making her look as unappealing as possible.
Yeah, we all love her. Even, she has that mouth licking scene, and something about Mary. She seems game for anything,
She is. She's really game for anything. She's very brave.
Now, you were in Spies Like Us. Now, I had the pleasure of meeting Dan Aykroyd because he did a wine bottle signing here in Fredericton back a few years ago, and I got my picture taken with him. And
well, he's Canadian. He spends a lot of time up in Canada, I believe, or he used to. Yeah, he's a lovely guy. Such a lovely. I mean, that was my first experience in making a film, and I feel so fortunate to have been around people like him, because he was just so fun and sweet and encouraging, and I was 18 years old at the time and kind of in over my head, and he really made me feel comfortable, and then his wife Donna Dixon too, and she was in the movie, and they just made me feel really, really safe. So it was a great experience. He's a really lovely guy.
A lot of people had like Blues Brothers and Ghostbusters memorabilia there. He signed my Blues Brothers DVD, and
oh, that's great.
Oh, that was awesome. And I like the fact even after the cutoff time, he continued to sign for everybody, and I appreciated that he did that.
Yeah, that's so nice. Yeah, I've done quite a few. Because I was on this show called Stargate, which is a sci-fi show, and they often have conventions, and so I get invited to conventions, and I can never understand why actors, get they sort of really separate themselves from the fans, because, if it wasn't for the fans, we wouldn't be there. You know what I mean? And I think that ultimately we're all human beings, and we're all trying to relate, and when an actor tries to kind of, just doesn't have the time for people, or is just sort of acts, like they're very separate. I don't understand that kind of attitude.
You know what's interesting? Because going back to Kingpin in 1996, one film that came out that year I boycotted was The Fan with Wesley Snipes and Robert De Niro. I boycotted it because it seemed to me like De Niro plays this baseball fan, and Wesley Snipes is the baseball star, and he tries to become involved in his life. And I boycotted it because ever since Lennon was shot, it almost like they make these movies that poise the fans as being a bunch of stalkers. And I'm like, there's a lot of these award shows where I never see the fans thanked. And I'm like, look, the fans are the reason that they're there. And it's like we're being looked at as poor people.
Yeah, no, I know that. I mean, other than the People's Choice Awards, I agree. It's very sort of elitist, sort of like just within the industry type of thing. And yeah, I mean, I always have time for people. I mean, I think that, like, my husband sometimes is like, oh, you don't need to, like, sign for everybody. And I mean, I always, like, if somebody asks for an autographed picture, I always send them one. And I just feel like that's part of the whole point of being an actor is that you're trying to reach other people. You're trying to affect them. You're trying to touch their hearts. You're trying to it's about being connected to other people. And if you sort of separate yourself from that, once you get some kind of notoriety, then you're sort of missing the point.
Yeah. Going back to Spies Like Us, you also worked with Chevy Chase, somebody else I really admire as well. Did you enjoy working with him?
Yes, he was really in his sort of peak back then. So he definitely had a very big personality. No, he was great. He was great. I mean, I felt more of an affinity towards Dan and Donna, I think, but he was I've since seen him. He's a good friend with a friend of mine, and so I've seen him a few times since then. And no, he's a very talented guy. All those original Saturday Night Live members were so talented, I think.
Agreed. One of my favorite scenes in the film was where Frank Oz is in that classroom and they're cheating on their test.
Yeah.
That was to me, that was the highlight of the film for me, is when they're in there cheating and Chevy Chase breaks wind and the other guy freaking takes credit for it. He stares at him.
Right. I know. It's sort of another movie about, like, goofy guys that are sort of in over their heads, right? Get into situations that are out of control.
And of course, Aykroyd and Donna Dixon still together. That is awesome.
Yeah, I know. That's a long-standing marriage. Yeah, no, because they had, I think when we did that, they had only been married about a year or something. They were newlyweds. So.
Yeah, they met on, I think, Dr. Detroit or something like that.
Yes, they did.
What was your advice for people in keeping a marriage strong? Because you've been successful.
Yeah, I mean, 20 years in this business is a long time. I mean, I think that the part of the reason why people who are both in the same industry, in the entertainment industry, have trouble is because you can end up on location a lot and away from each other, and anytime you're away for extended periods of time, it can be very difficult, and I think you can quite easily start to grow apart. So I made a sort of pact with my husband that we wouldn't be away for more than 3 weeks.
Okay.
There's been a couple of times here and there where I've done a movie in Eastern Europe or somewhere where I've been maybe gone 4 or 5 weeks, but I think you just have to, you have to make sure that you're together a lot, and you have to. I mean, obviously, you have to be with the right person where you're going to be able to, grow and make sacrifices and make compromises, and I mean, marriage is not the easiest thing, but I think you just have to not want to walk away so easily, and you have to know that the grass isn't always greener, and you have to work through those issues and not just have the inclination to want to stop, because at the end of the day I think you end up in the same place with whoever you're with. You have to deal with your own issues on an individual level and try and work on those things alone, and then also work on the marriage together.
Speaking of anniversary, Spies Like Us is actually 30 years old
Oh my
this year.
God! Don't even say that. That's crazy.
You looked really cute in your little snow hat.
Yeah, that was. Yeah, I remember when we were shooting in Norway, and it was in March, and it was so cold. And I remember when John Landis said, "Oh, you're gonna have to come out of the tent with like your underwear on," and I'm like, "But it's like minus 15 degrees." It's like, really? And they had this little heater in the tent for me, so I would like duck into the tent and get warm for a second, and then come out, and because I remember that scene took quite a long time, because they were sort of had the camera really quite far away, and there was a lot of sort of radio instructions, and we had to do it several times. So I remember thinking, oh my God, I'm freezing my butt off here.
Landis directed that, didn't he?
Yes.
Wow, he did Animal House and the Blues Brothers. Actually, it's strange. I watched American Werewolf in London last night. So
did you really? Oh, that's a great film. Yeah, he's great. I feel so fortunate again that was my first experience. Although I was really spoiled because we shot in London and in Norway and a couple of things in I didn't shoot in Los Angeles, but they shot some of the movie in Los Angeles, and so I thought that was like how every movie was made, and it was big budget, and then when I after I shot that movie and I was in the business, and then I think I can't remember my second movie, but I realized that they weren't all going to be like that, and it was a rude awakening.
Yeah, his son Max wrote the screenplay for American Ultra, which I actually went and saw 3 times this year.
Really? Yeah, he's doing really well. He's a very talented and in-demand writer. Yeah.
Yeah,
I remember he was born, I think, like that year. He was born the year that we shot Spies, like in 1985, I believe, because I remember Deborah, his wife, was pregnant with him at that time.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, and some other movies you did. I wasn't a big fan of Baby Geniuses as much as I like Bob Clark.
Really, you're
not a big fan, but
the only one. No, I think that's been on like numerous sort of worst movies ever made lists.
And Bob Clark, he made like Black Christmas and A Christmas Story,
which is like a classic.
Yeah.
But I was just so thrilled to work with Jon Voight. I mean, yeah, it's a little kiddie movie. It's sort of a silly concept, but
I haven't seen Super Babies, the one that you're in. I've seen some clips in it.
Yeah, it's. I don't think it's probably your cup of tea, but it was. For me, it was. Well, first of all, I had my daughter was 6 months old when I was shooting that, so. I sort of wanted to do something that she would be able to watch, when she was little.
Yeah.
So I hadn't really done anything that was sort of as kid-friendly as that. And a chance to work with Jon Voight, who I think is one of the greatest actors of all time. So to me, even though it wasn't, a traditional sort of role for him, he's actually great in the movie. I mean, Jon Voight, whatever he does, he could, read the phone book probably and be brilliant. But he is actually really good and funny in this film, so I just wanted a chance to work with him.
I don't blame you, because ever since Midnight Cowboy,
Oh,
like, he has done well. And you know what? I agree with you. He seems, even with Baby Geniuses, and you know, he seems like he's game. He's willing to laugh at himself.
Exactly. I mean, he takes a lot of risks, and he's still. I mean, the movie as a whole is is what it is, but he's actually still great in it, and he it was actually really fun. It was really fun to shoot, but it's definitely been on some worst movies of all time list. So it's kind of I guess it's embarrassing, but I'm not embarrassed or regretful that I did it, because I had a great time. Sometimes the experience of doing a film is different than the outcome of the final film, and how it comes together, and how it's perceived, and how it is different than the actual experience of shooting it.
I agree. Most of these movies, they always have one of those weird diaper changing scenes in it. Did you have one of those in this?
No, they were more, like, sort of 2.5 years old, so they were just sort of out of diapers, I think. Oh no, actually no, there was a scene where they had diapers, but there was no diaper changing scenes. But it was actually really fun to shoot.
Yeah, sometimes those scenes can get gross.
No, there wasn't any like flying poop or anything.
Oh, I hated the movie The Change Up for that. I panned it within the first 5 minutes of the movie.
Oh yeah,
it was just disgusting. Yeah. But you, on a more pleasant note, I'm glad you had fun shooting that, and I don't blame you for wanting to work with John Boyd, because he is an incredible actor.
Yeah, he really is, and just a lovely man. Again, just a lovely, kind, generous human being.
Yeah, I've seen videos of him online of him like signing autographs and stuff, and he's very, very social. I like that.
He is very sweet. And as I said, my daughter was 6 months old at the time, and he was so sweet with her. I mean, he was just very, he was just lovely. He was just lovely.
Now, another film, of course, you were in with the Farrelly brothers, was Hall Pass, and that was actually what keyed me in to think, gee, I should see if Vanessa Angel is available for an interview. And I like Hall Pass a lot, and of course, there was a scene, I've got the uncut version of it on Blu-ray home, and I'm not sure whether this scene was cut or not. Because
is that the scene with me in the door with Jason Sudeikis?
Yeah.
Yeah. See, that was that's only in the Blu-ray version, I believe. It wasn't in the final theatrical version. But that scene, that was a funny scene.
You know what? What the Farrelly brothers should have done was to go deja vu and have you beat the crap out of them.
Yeah, I know. That would be funny, right?
Oh, man.
Jason Sudeikis is really blown up since then. He's really come a long way.
I thought it was funny. He comes to the door and he hands you that stuff, and you're like, yeah. And you
Greek food, I know, it's funny.
And you still look gorgeous.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you. I appreciate that.
I think you should have been in more of the movie.
I know. I was just really. It was just lovely to have them think of me, to play a part in it at all. So I was just, anytime I'm around the Farrellys, I'm happy to be there. So, But yeah, I agree. I would like to have had more things to do too. But I love working with them. They're just the sweetest people.
One of the funniest scenes in the movie for me was when Jason Sudeikis is out in his car masturbating, and the police car comes by.
Yeah, I know.
That was great.
There's some really funny stuff in it.
And we must admit, Christina Applegate's got the most gorgeous, captivating eyes I've ever seen.
She does, and she's so talented. So talented, and again, and I feel like I'm just praising everybody I've ever worked with, but she's just a really, really nice lady too.
Yeah, I like it. Speaking of the diaper changing, I think she was on Twitter one night, and I remember one tweet she put on there, and this was a few years ago, but she said, "Does anybody know how to change a diaper when the power's out?"
Oh, that's funny.
I remember she put that on there. I didn't give her any advice. I don't go there, but her eyes, I'm going to tell you, I could pick them out of a lineup. She's got beautiful eyes, especially when she's angry. Like, have you seen her in Anchorman Or even in the latest Vacation, I love the fact she's still willing to do physical humor, you know?
Yeah.
Because not everybody's willing to rub what is, according to the audience, feces all over their face when they're standing in mock. But you worked with her during the gala scene in that movie, didn't you?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, and Jenna Fisher.
Yes, again, another super talent.
Yeah, she came hot off The Office, so she had a major big win with that.
Yes.
Yeah, I think I went and saw Hall Pass a couple of times when it was in theaters, and I think it did modestly well, but didn't. I don't think it made the money it probably should have, and I actually really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I think sometimes I think it came out in February. It depends sometimes on when the studio brings it out and what kind of. Yeah, it's tricky. It's like there's no sort of guarantees. I think it's a curious thing, like the release of a film. Like I think I said earlier on, like when Kingpin first came out, it was end of July, and it was the first. I think it was the first day of the Atlanta Olympics.
Yeah.
And the movie didn't, and then Woody Harrelson didn't really want to. He had just done People versus Larry Flint, and I think he was wanting to kind of put more of his attention on that. And so I remember, I think the studio kind of, didn't put as much of a publicity campaign behind Kingpin. I think they weren't quite certain of how it was going to be perceived, and but then, as I said, it sort of got rediscovered after There's Something About Mary came out and did so well.
Yeah, it could easily play a double billing with The Big Lebowski, because they're two of the funniest bowling movies.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes. So what are you up to now?
Well, this year I've done two movies that I'm quite proud of, actually. One's called Trouble Sleeping, and it's a...
You're not having trouble sleeping, are you?
So I do sometimes, but it's a thriller, and I got a chance to play this. First of all, the lead in a movie, and it's very rare that you find a movie with a woman in her late 40s as the lead, and it was just a really great, challenging role where this woman just sort of comes unraveled throughout the whole movie, and it was just a great chance to play something really emotional and dramatic, but also it's sort of along the lines of the Coen brothers, where it has some sort of comedic moments in it, but the role in terms of like what I got to bring to it was really deep, and it was also with Billy Zane, and my husband actually who is an actor, played my husband in the movie, which was wonderful to work with him, and to be able to use that kind of relationship that you have, that built-in, the sort of dynamic that you have as a real couple. I could bring some of that to the role, and so I'm excited about that. The director, I think, is hoping that it can get into some of the festivals next year. And then I did another straight-out horror movie called Behind the Walls, where I play another even though it's a horror movie, it's really the story of this woman who's escaping her abusive husband with her 3 kids, and they go to this new home, and the home ends up being kind of weirdly haunted. So it's kind of like a haunted house movie, but I got to be really raw and wear no makeup and be very unglamorous and going through a lot of hard emotional times. So it was really nice that I feel like I'm finally old enough to sort of not just be thought of as the pretty girl,
Yeah.
which is nice. So I'm excited about those two movies.
Are they going to get a theatrical release?
I think so. Yeah, I mean, they don't have release dates right now. I think they're sort of going to do the festival circuit, and we'll see what happens. But yeah, no, it was I really feel it was just nice to do something a little bit different.
I gotta say, you've aged nicely. You've heard me compliment you on here several times.
You.
But what's your advice to women out there?
Well, I mean, I've always been a big believer in eating well and exercising. I think that that makes you feel better about yourself, and it's just good for your health. But I mean, in terms of actresses, I think it's very important to, what they call grow old gracefully. I mean, I think that it's, there's such a pressure to look younger, longer, but I think that you have to, I don't believe in, I just believe in trying, it's actually better. I mean, they say that there's a shortage of actresses who are in their late 40s and 50s. Everybody sort of ends up looking the same age because they get Botox and they do surgeries and there's a reason why Judi Dench and Helen Mirren and Meryl Streep and actresses like that are I think so revered and so compelling because they look really real but they're so beautiful at the same time, and I think that there's a real pressure for women in this business to try and stay as young looking as possible. That being said, of course I think we're all can sometimes succumb to like feeling like you want to look your best, but I've always just believed in eating well and exercising and sleep and good night's sleep, and I get obviously take care of my skin and have a skin routine and stuff like that, but I also think it's definitely how you feel on the inside definitely reflects on the outside. I think if you're unhappy and troubled, I think that it's your confidence and you're feeling good about yourself from the inside that really does make you feel better about yourself, and that ultimately makes you feel good.
Okay. Only got a few more short things to ask you before I let you go. Number one, do you got any charities or anything you want to plug while you're on here?
Well, I mean, I do a lot of work here with some things, but nothing. I go to the homeless shelter and stuff like that in LA, but I mean, no like big companies that I really endorse.
God bless you that you do that. I'm sure that's very well appreciated.
Yeah, no, the homeless situation in LA is really horrible. I mean, thank God that the new mayor, Eric Garcetti, is working on really trying to help the homeless here, because it's become, I mean, every time you drive in LA, I mean, every time you're under an underpass, there's these little tent cities, and it's just very, very disturbing. And I know that they're working on building a new homeless shelter in LA, and they're just really trying to get some sort of housing situations sorted out for the homeless population here. I don't know how it is where you are, but it's just become like epidemic here. It's very, very, very disturbing.
Yeah, and that was one complaint come in about all these immigrants being brought in where we can't take care of our own homeless, and that becomes a struggle in its own.
Yeah, I know. It's a real problem. I mean, LA is particularly hard because, the rents are so high here, so I think that it's, I mean, and it's not just all people, who have, drug problems, and it's all across the board. It's people who just suddenly lose a job and they can't pay their rent, and these are just families that are it just affects so many different people. It's very, very sad.
Yeah. Another thing I wanted to ask, I would love to get an autographed picture of you. Do I do that through your
Oh no, I would be happy to send you one. So just send a message with your address, and I will send one off to you with pleasure.
I would love that. Yeah, I always ask that when I interview somebody, because to me it means it's more than just an interview. It's really well appreciated, Because when this interview is done and up, and I'm going to have it on this Sunday because it's being recorded, I could send the link to you, and you can put it on your Facebook webpage.
That would be great. That would be great.
Yeah, we can do that. Like I said, you're number 20, so this is a major thing for me this year.
Well, I'm glad you've had such a good year.
Oh, it's been great, and I look at some of these movies and I can't believe I'm talking to this person or that person, and like next time I watch Kingpin, it's gonna be like I talked to the girl that beat up Woody Harrelson.
Well, it's a pleasure to talk to you.
Yes. And one last thing.
Okay.
Would you please do a plug for my show before you go?
Of course.
Yeah, just say your name and say you're listening to I'll make it simple. Say you're listening to Greg Gilbert in Fredericton, New Brunswick.
Fredericton. Okay, Greg Gilbert in Fredericton. Fredericton?
Fredericton.
Fredericton, New Brunswick. Okay.
You could put CHSR FM if you want to. That's the name of the station.
Okay, Fredericton.
Yeah, that's FREDERICTON, Fredericton.
Fredericton.
New Brunswick, yeah.
Brunswick. Okay.
You've never been up this way, I take it, huh?
I haven't. No, I've been to Montreal and Toronto and Vancouver, but that's it.
Have you ever heard of the Trailer Park Boys?
No, I haven't.
They're from Halifax around here, and Ivan Reitman produced their first movie. And
wow.
Yeah, so if you ever get a chance to check them out, they're like the Canadian Cheech and Chong, only they live in a trailer park, and they're pretty funny.
Oh, I will check them out.
Yeah, they're the Trailer Park Boys, and I think you might enjoy them. Like I said, Ivan Reitman produced their first movie, and they've done 3 movies, and they've done 10 seasons here, so...
Wow.
They've done well, so that'd be something for you to check out. Yeah, just say your name and say you're listening to Greg Gilbert at CHSR in Fredericton, New Brunswick, Canada.
At CHAR?
CHSR.
So sorry.
Yeah, that's okay. You're not the first person to mess it up. I had fun with Cindy Morgan from Caddyshack on here one night, and she just said, keep the flub ups in there. It sounds real.
Okay. All right.
Okay. We're ready.
This is Vanessa Angel, and you're listening to Sorry. Oh, my God. I need to put my glasses on. I'm sorry. This is Vanessa Angel, and you're listening to Greg Gilbert at Oh, my God. God, I'm so sorry.
That's okay. You're not the first person to do it. It just makes you sound human.
God, it makes me realize how hard it is what you do.
Yeah?
Okay, this is Vanessa Angel, and you're listening to Greg Gilbert at CHSR, Fredericton, New Brunswick.
There you go. And happy upcoming 20th anniversary for Kingpin. Great movie. Check it out on Netflix, wherever. Buy it on Blu-ray. And happy upcoming 20th anniversary to your marriage.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
You tell your husband to give you a big kiss for me.
I will.
He's one lucky man.
Thank you, Greg. It was great talking to you. Happy holidays, too.
Yes, Merry Christmas to you, and thank you so much for coming on here. It was a real honor. And I'll message you about the autograph.
Okay, sounds great. I will send it off.
Sure. Well, God bless, and you have a great day.
Thank you. You too. Bye.
Okay. Yeah, bye.